And Maslow's hierarchy of needs again is a psychological construct that how do our needs and shapes are कि उनकी hierarchy क्या है. And you can think of it कि whenever you are born into this life or like gain awareness and consciousness and agency over yourself. Consciousness I relate it to very fundamentally as कि being more aware. So I mean, and it's as practical as like looking at your household spend or household budget. क्या चीजों पे spend करो? Are they conscious or not? Like just answering that. And I think it's as practical as that, and it gets as metaphysical and as philosophical as you want it to.
I think in order to be conscious, I think less consumerism is also conscious consumerism. Like just cutting down stuff, and I think then you become more aware on the good products, because you are really focused when you go out and buy stuff, right? I mean, if you are just buying like clothes once a year or once in 2 years, because that's all you really need, right? And then if you go out, you are more focused on these things, and I think that's what is transcendence that we were discussing earlier.
नमस्ते सभी को और स्वागत है आई डोंट नो के पहले एपिसोड पर. आई डोंट नो क्या है और ये हम क्यों कर रहे हैं, इसको मैं एक अलग वीडियो के थ्रू आपको एक्सप्लेन करने की कोशिश करूंगा. आज के एपिसोड में हम ये समझने की कोशिश करेंगे कि कंज्यूमरिज्म क्या होता है और कॉन्शियस कंज्यूमरिज्म क्या होता है. इसके लिए हमारे साथ होंगे ऐश्वर्य और प्रभाकर. ऐश्वर्य IIT दिल्ली से 2013 में ग्रेजुएट हुए थे और उसके बाद पिछले 10 वर्षों से वो एंटरप्रेन्योर रहे हैं. उन्होंने डिफरेंट कंपनी सेटअप करी एंड फिर आज की डेट में वो मेंस एजेंसी के को फाउंडर हैं, जो कि मोस्ट सिग्निफिकेंटली झाजी अचारों के साथ एसोसिएटेड हैं टू हेल्प देम स्केल देयर बिजनेस. दूसरी तरफ प्रभाकर एक प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर हैं जो कि डंजो और जम्बोटेल जैसे ई-कॉमर्स कंपनीज में काम कर चुके हैं और आज की डेट में वो अपना नेक्स्ट एंटरप्राइज फिगर आउट कर रहे हैं. तो बिना किसी विलंब के चलते हैं कॉन्वर्सेशन में.
सो क्या हाल है? हाउ आर यू गाइस डूइंग?
गुड.
बढ़िया भाई, अभी 20 मिनट से ये बातें कर रहे हैं. हाँ वो तो है ही, बट यार फिर भी मतलब थोड़ा फ्लो तो बनाना ही पड़ता ना. तो कूल यार. आई थिंक अपन ने व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू गोइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड बेटर इज इफेक्टिवली कॉन्शियस कंज्यूमरिज्म, राइट? मतलब जो हमारा टॉपिक थीम ऑफ द डे भी है, तो उस पे अपन आते हैं सब्जेक्ट पे. बट आई थिंक फर्स्ट लेट्स probably just give a brief introduction about you two guys. So probably Aishwarya, if you want to take it away. हाँ. तो मैं ऐश्वर्य अभी पिछले 6-7 साल से like I've been working on the in the communication space, and a big part जो जिस चीज़ पे मैंने टाइम दिया है, सोचा है, काम किया है, that revolves around conscious consumerism and sustainable development goals, more broadly speaking. So whatever I do is about building businesses that are built more consciously, that work towards or like that try to reach out to this conscious consumer. I've helped other brands as a marketing, running an agency previously. Currently, we are building Chaji store, which is a pickles brand being built out of Darbhanga. That's creating a bunch of local livelihood there. So yeah, with that context, like I come to this discussion, happy to change thoughts and like understand what you guys think about conscious consumerism and how it's shaping up. Nice. सही है, वेलकम. आई थिंक आपसे एक और अभी फर्दर सवाल भी पूछूंगी, बट लेट्स जस्ट वेट फॉर प्रभाकर इंट्रो एंड देन आई विल टेक इट a couple of questions that I have.
Cool. So I'm Prabhakar. I've been into product mostly within Indian startup ecosystem. So for the last 7 years, I've worked with companies like Jumbotail, Dunzo, and most recently Navi. So I have plethora of experience around e-commerce, hyperlocal deliveries, and fintech, and within that industries mostly into product. So basically how you think about customer problems, how you go about solving them using technology and design. That has been something which I've been doing for the last 5 years. And yes, now I'm again on a break, and which brings me to this podcast. And yeah, happy to chat today for on conscious consumerism.
Nice, sir. Welcome. तो आई थिंक जस्ट वांटिंग टू अंडरस्टैंड बेटर. तो ऐश्वर्या, जैसे आपने बताया कि यू हैव बीन closely working on conscious brands, growing conscious brands specifically, right? So why did you even go into this in the first place? What were your motivations? What was the thought process? Thoda, if you can help us understand that better.
Sure. I approached it towards from a marketing or communication standpoint. So basically, जिससे पहले 2016 में मैं I was running an operations consulting company सूक्ष्म, and we noticed like Jio के साथ साथ पूरा internet sort of sweeping India. Lot of infrastructure being built, connectivity increasing, cost of internet data dropping, and from everything that I had seen in the years leading to it, in the West or like in India more broadly, just meant that internet is going to be an exciting space where a lot of people are going to like bring a whole lot of new attention, and it creates a space to sort of build new businesses. Like it's just like there's a lot of happening, so like possibly you can find a few opportunities that you find interesting as well. तो इस thought के साथ हम लोगों ने इंटरनेट पे टाइम देना स्टार्ट किया. पहले सर्विसेज को हम लोगों ने एक प्रोडक्टाइज सर्विसेज का, तो कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग जो भी इंडस्ट्री बाइंग अभी ज़्यादातर जो कर रहा है, ऑफ बिजनेस जो कर रहा है, उस टाइप से पहले हमने मटेरियल प्रोक्योरमेंट में स्टार्ट की थी चीज़ें इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्ट्स के. उसके बाद धीरे धीरे उसको पिवट करके हम लोग फूड पैकेजिंग वाली साइड पर आए. बट दैट बिजनेस डिडंट फ्लाई आउट वेल, और लाइक बेसिकली द 5 of us who were working were not really keen on that problem or this space itself. So that drifted, but it was enough. That 6 months experience was enough for Mayank and I to see that internet is the place we want to spend more time and doing marketing, doing communications. About a year in, after working with a bunch of different organizations, different industries, felt कि यार मतलब अब communications business तो बना रहे हैं, like मतलब what is it that you want to communicate about, like what do you want to stand for, and that sort of soul searching process led us to the Sustainable Development Goals framework. I was visiting US, noticed the Conscious Capitalism community and Whole Foods and John Mackey around that time. And since then, that concept has shaped everything that I've done in terms of how I think about my business, how the kind of businesses that we work with, the kind of marketing and communications campaigns that we think of, how we approach things like customer service and leadership and employee management. So yeah, I think it's been a big part of conscious consumerism and conscious capitalism. And the reason why I reached out to this is, like I said, the internet was changing. And yeah, I think I'll probably dive a bit on this. तो विद इंटरनेट पहले साल में ये महसूस होना शुरू हुआ कि देयर इज like a consciousness bubble that is building up, or and a bubble in the more positive sense, like that there is a rise in consciousness if you feel around yourself. So it starts with around conversations. So like मतलब 2010-11 का पीछे जाके अगर रिफ्लेक्ट करो तो अरब स्प्रिंग्स, पीपल वर चेंजिंग, लाइक कि हमारी कंट्रीज कैसी होंगी, हमारी मतलब कंपनीज की क्या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज हैं. Ben and Jerry's has been a big thing. Whole Foods has had the revolution, and all of them have championed certain choices and ways of doing business, which was different from the pack. So with internet, and like I said, सारी thesis थी कि इंडिया में इंटरनेट आता है तो नई opportunities आएंगी. Big opportunity was that with internet, people get access to lot of information. So for example, हमारे पास food में इतने सारे influences हैं that are unpacking की consumer goods की companies की packaging क्यों सही नहीं है, कैसे वो अपने labels पे lie कर रहे हैं या चीजें hide कर रहे हैं. तो इस type से with internet, this consciousness builds up, and as people get more conscious, like it's only a matter of time in which, like when you start becoming conscious, it's a journey that I felt myself कि जब तुम conscious होते हो तो फिर एक एक करके जब तुम चीजें unravel करते हो तो inevitably you see कि the money that you are spending has an impact like around you, and if you start thinking more consciously, people are going to, with this whole new information, it's only a matter of time when people say कि अच्छा what do I do about it. अब problem जानने की नहीं है, like everybody fairly knows or like has access to the information at the fingertips, but now what do people do about it. So I think that was the insight key. All of this new information is going to expose people to start taking actions. Internet facilitates that, and yeah, it can vary from across the board. So that was the thesis.
Got it. I think I have one question, Ashi. So when we talk about that awareness is there because of accessibility to knowledge, now it's more about implementing it. Just wanted to know some of the examples. Like I still belong to a very normal cohort of people who still, don't have actually integrated or put a very conscious effort on, when I shop around or when I buy stuff. Of course, there are like basic hygienic things which are there in life. I do follow them. But yeah, I mean, if something is of plastic, say, or if I'm buying some product from a company which is not very good in these terms, right? So I'm still not there. So I just wanted to know some examples from you, right? What are like some of the daily use things, or like just a general personal preference change over past few years? Just some of the examples, that
So yeah,
becomes very.
I can speak from the examples of the brands that we work with. Or सबके case में almost it was about an awareness around new thing that they didn't know before. So for example, one of the brands that we had a lot of success with was Zazira. They sell like authentic Meghalayan spices, tulakadong haldi, भूत जोलकिया की मिर्च. इनको ये प्रोसेस इनको फार्म से प्रोक्योर कर रहे थे, प्रोसेस कर रहे थे, और they had the brand to sell this. Now all of this was कि लाकाडोंग टर्मरिक क्यों वैल्यूएबल है, क्यों ये एक्सपोर्ट क्वालिटी टर्मरिक है एज अपोज, एंड तुम्हारी रेगुलर टर्मरिक से कैसे फर्क है. उसका कर्क्यूमिन कंटेंट फॉर एग्जांपल ऑलमोस्ट 3x होता है. पीपल ऑलरेडी ऑलवेज न्यू दिस, बट सबके दिमाग में था कि मेघालय की हल्दी एक्सपोर्ट होती है, पर यहाँ पे जब कि उनको भी मिल सकती है, एक्सेस मिल सकता है लाकाडोंग की हल्दी के, एक्चुअली ये सब फायदे हैं, उसको मैं इस तरीके से यूज कर सकता हूँ अपने डे टू डे प्रोडक्ट में. ऑल ऑफ दैट अवेयरनेस हेल्प, और हमारे सारे कैंपेन्स इन चीज़ों के अराउंड थे. प्रोडक्ट को आप कैसे यूज करो, प्रोडक्ट कहाँ से आता है, कौन उगाता है, क्यों अच्छा है. तो आई थिंक दिस अवेयरनेस हेल्प. जजीरा का एग्जांपल हो गया. सेकंड, एवरीडे, तो ये फूड और कॉन्डिमेंट्स वाली स्पेस में तो आई थिंक यू कैन सी, बिकॉज स्पेशली जहाँ पे इंडल्जेंस है, तो जब क्योंकि वहाँ पे इफेक्टिवली देयर इज नो नीड, लाइक मतलब तुम क्रिएट कर रहे हो कि मतलब तुम क्या एंजॉय करते हो, तो यू आर लुकिंग फॉर दोस प्रोडक्ट्स. एंड इन दैट सेंस I mean, spices by its category, of course, is grocery, fast moving, but usme like to look out for a brand like Zazira, I think requires a certain level of indulgence or thought into it. So I think that's proof. Second is ki this was a brand of natural cleaners started by a company called Ekam Eco. They had the brand for Zero Door Care, which were a line of biological cleaners, which were a natural alternative to your Harpic and Lysol and Vim detergent, like liquids. So again, the promise was that it's enzymic, it's natural, it's safer for your kids. ऐसा नहीं है कि मतलब like fumes आ रहे हैं तुम्हारे chemical cleaners से usually. So that helps. That is like people who are aged, people who are young, they are more susceptible to it. So in that sense, it was a more sensible choice, and Better Home like shot the ball out of the park with these. There is of course more innovation that's happening in that space, and there are more interesting brands coming up. But yeah, that's another example of an everyday product that people see. Talking about like the pickles itself, like pickles की झाजी स्टोर के pickles है कि बिहार के अचार कैसे different होते हैं बाकियों से, वो मस्टर्ड ऑयल यहाँ पे क्यों नहीं मिलता. अगेन पिकल्स में प्रेजर्वेटिव्स और कलर्स यूज होते हैं, वो सबको अगेन इंट्यूटिवली पता था, बट company has brought it to the fore, is talking about it actively. So I think in these ways, like awareness and awareness bhi hai, products bhi hain, and this is how like people are changing their everyday habits. I think it starts with an indulgence, thoda mass premium wali category mein it starts. Also, like you need to Maslow hierarchy में अगर हम देखें तो मतलब you need to be sort of at a certain stage where तुम्हारी health, safety, belongingness, family, ये सब चीजें taken care of, and then you can start to indulge in like, and it starts with like inner exploration in my understanding and experience. But of course, like वहाँ तक पहुँचने के लिए एक sense of security, sense of safety चाहिए. तो there is only a small community that is still able to access that. अब तुमने कहा था कि like you're not able to adopt it. Frankly, मतलब for all I know, मेरा जितना adoption है अपनी daily life में, it is like about मतलब I would say, I think if I pay a more closer look, I think I can bump it up seriously. लेकिन इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि डेली हैबिट्स में these are not as automatic choices. चॉइसेस लिमिटेड हैं, या थोड़ा महंगा पड़ता है, या फॉर एग्जांपल हम लोग एक नेचुरल सोप्स यूज करते हैं, वो यहाँ पे मिलते नहीं है, यॉर्क में थोड़े दूर मिलते हैं, यहाँ से 4 घंटे, तो मंगाना पड़ता है. तो आई थिंक लॉट, सो देयर इज लाइक सिर्फ मेरी चॉइस के ऊपर ही नहीं है या मेरी अवेयरनेस के ऊपर ही नहीं है, देयर इज लॉट ऑफ लाइक द एनवायरमेंटल फैक्टर्स दैट आल्सो प्ले इनटू इट. अगेन नॉट टू से कि मतलब इसमें कोई ऐसी चीज नहीं है कि अगेन वन इज बेटर देन द अदर. I think everybody gets to it in their own time, and I think like तो वहाँ पे I don't necessarily feel कि इसमें कोई I would say people need to feel bad about it or like feel lacking about it. I think that feeling lacking वाली feeling को ही avoid करके a conscious journey makes more sense.
Correct.
So, it's not a standard that you need to necessarily hold on to. It's just about gaining awareness more progressively. Every little thing that you can do moves you along
Yeah.
for the ride, and I think that's a more sustainable way to sort of adopt this practice in the life.
Right. I think इस पे एक दो थोड़े मेरे follow up questions हैं. So one is more a request of sorts की for the people who would be listening जिनको Maslow's hierarchy ना पता तो एक quick intro to Maslow's hierarchy if you can give, that would be great. Secondly, I think what Prabhakar was also hinting towards or trying to ask, and Prabhakar do add if I'm wrong, but I think the idea was कि कुछ ऐसी brands हैं क्या जो which have become, let's say, फॉर एग्जाम्पल हार्पिक के कंपटीशन में अगर मैं चाहूँ तो किसी एक्स या फॉर सिंप्लिसिटी से किसी एकम इको ने क्या हार्पिक को पछाड़ दिया है, ऐसे कुछ एग्जांपल्स हमारे पास हैं क्या फ्रॉम द इंडस्ट्री इज द सेकंड फॉलो अप बेसिकली. सो
makes sense. So I think Attenberg is the biggest example. Direct to consumer brand में सबसे बड़ी अच्छी success stories, like 1,000 crore plus brand selling energy efficient appliances. I think that's a great story. I think I'm not sure about the Better India's numbers, but I would imagine they did a few crores of revenues very, very quickly. So that would have made an impact, and it of course like created ripples, generated more awareness for a lot more brands to be flourish. So I think it's also interesting. Consumer goods में ना there are like small niches in which brands can operate. अगर तुम अपने आसपास दुकानें देखो, मतलब लोगों की local दुकानें चली आ रही हैं मतलब सदियों से, and I think that is a very sustainable way of like building those brands as well. They not necessarily need to be hyper funded and like build. Of course, like if you have an opportunity like ID Fresh Foods or a Attenberg, sure, go for it. But you don't necessarily need to create it unnecessarily. And there are like a lot of happiness along the way. Doing a few crores in revenues, making money for yourself, having a good lifestyle. So I think that this facilitates it. So to your point, like Attenberg ka success study and like a lot of these small micro niches जहाँ पे तुम 10 crore, 20 crore, 40 crore, 50 crore पे profitable businesses बना सकते हो over a span of 3 to 5 years. I think it's a meaningful opportunity for a lot of people.
Right.
What do you
I
say?
think वही नहीं fair. I think मतलब थोड़ा fundamentally, if I were to just come from my experience of like for the past 6 years of observing startups, of observing the industry in general of e-commerce. Again, I'm also from an e-commerce background. So वहाँ पे I think एक जो increasingly लोगों का वो one stop all वाला जो चीज है ना, slash conquering the whole market, trying to be the one player, right? I think that is fundamentally not even possible in a country like ours. मतलब इस पे we have had similar discussion in the past also कि यार the pie is very big and there can be multiple players who are coexisting there instead of going for that कि यार मैं पूरा market capture करूंगा. There is probably more contentment as a business owner also, and also for a customer there's a niche which they get attracted to, which gets accessible, which is made accessible effectively. So हाँ, I think fair point है.
nuances भी इतने सारे हैं, मतलब फॉर एग्जांपल अपने आप में ये सारे इतने बड़े मार्केट नहीं है. फॉर एग्जांपल एक कंपनी को ओन करने के लिए, फॉर एग्जांपल Amazon might want to go for a grocery segment or like a beauty and personal care segment के high margins वगैरह हैं. इन सारे businesses necessarily आपको like these are not very attractive PE or hyper like large scale companies, but like I'm saying ki these are like sustainable niches within themselves, and you can operate them profitably, making a good having a good meaningful life, even if you do not sell to a larger company or like grow into a larger company yourself. So that's where all I would add.
Makes sense. I think just another जो पहला follow up था around the Maslow's hierarchy, so a quick intro to that.
Maslow's hierarchy, so again, I come from a background of marketing, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs again is a psychological construct that how do our needs and shapes are कि उनके hierarchy क्या है. So and you can think of it कि like मतलब again whenever you are born into this life or like gain awareness and consciousness and agency over yourself, तो सबसे पहले आपको first layer पे physical safety is what you are assuring. रोटी कपड़ा मकान हो, इस टाइप की चीज़ों को आप सबसे पहले लेवल पे लाते हो. The second level I would say is again a sense of security कि मेरी family में सारी चीज़ें ठीक हैं, मेरा immediate social circle है, like I have like these pillars to surround myself with. And then third level onwards is when you start contemplating for things like love, belonging. So for example, when I say कि झाजी store मिथिलांचल का असली अचार है, यहाँ का अनोखा स्वाद है, this speaks to a sense of belonging and love for that place in my target customer, and that is what I'm appealing to. So this is probably the third. I'm probably mixing these up. We can probably pull up the Maslow hierarchy, but ये sense of love and belonging है, उससे नीचे family support या social support, उससे पहले physical safety. The fourth would be fourth of sentence आता है आपका
self actualization.
Yeah, self actualization या transcendence की, like you completely start reflecting. So content, all of that content from Jordan Peterson speaks a lot towards self actualization. तो तुम देख सकते हो कि markets किस space में है. तो for example भारत या tier 3 market is a very Maslow hierarchy में need 1 need 2 पे है, and that is how you need to address them, market them. Like मतलब it shapes all of your communication and strategies around how you approach that market itself. That's very a very utilitarian perspective, marketing के point of view से, but I think it's also a very good conceptual framework to wrap your mind around it. Then like I said, Jhaji store का customer is at level 3 level 4, like वहाँ से मतलब बिहार से वो निकल चुका है, अच्छा पैसा कमा रहा है या कमा रही है, बड़े शहरों में रहे हैं या एटलीस्ट ट्रैवल करते रहे हैं इधर से उधर. तो अगेन these are like let's say experiences, life experiences that set you up from like one consciousness or one Maslow hierarchy to the next, and you can also see like people evolving around this. So for example 18 साल में कॉलेज से निकले, जॉब नहीं है, तो सबसे पहले सेफ्टी सिक्योरिटी ढूंढो, फिर सोशल सपोर्ट देखो, इमीडिएट फैमिली देखो, लव रिलेशनशिप्स देखो, तीसरे उसके बाद है कि मतलब ट्रांसेंडेंस देखो. एंड आई थिंक अगेन दिस पैटर्न सॉर्ट ऑफ रेप्लिकेट्स a lot around it. Jordan Peterson, for example, he talks about like I think starting. I probably that will be a tangent, but my point is that this pattern sort of repeats itself. The Maslow hierarchy repeats or manifests itself in a variety of ways. Yeah.
सही है, काफी इंटरेस्टिंग. Cool है, I think. So just taking a step back, I think we went into conscious brands and हमने थोड़ा बहुत discuss किया around that. To even begin with, let's try and flatten out what is consumerism. Let's bring it out, right? मतलब क्योंकि consumerism से at least जो impression जाता है, that is just buying things unnecessarily and hoarding or slash materialism की तरफ थोड़ा जाता है, which is also kind of what the popular definition, so to say, is right now, right? But at the core, and again, please feel free to add, this is based on whatever I was reading, right? So consumerism is effectively that so there was this Keynes, I think, just let me refer to it, J.M. Keynes, a British economist, जो कि in the post, मतलब he was effectively trying to explain the Great Depression and trying to understand क्या हो रहा है, and he came up with this idea कि यार increasing consumption of goods and services by the population is a desirable goal for any economy, for any country, for any social structure, so to say, right? And it basically it is based on the premise कि यार मतलब an individual's well-being and happiness is highly correlated with their material possessions, is where this kind of stemmed from. So this is the current, मतलब this is what I got to know about consumerism, but do feel free to add, मतलब इसके अलावा भी अगर कुछ है वहाँ पे.
हाँ, sure. And Prabhakar, do you want to go for it first? Like, मतलब if anything you want to add?
No, I think this is fairly articulated. Definitely.
तो मुझे I read this point जब लिखा हुआ था उस blog पे, तो the thing is कि the way I looked at it is कि consumerism or like let's say जो Keynes भी कह रहे हैं वहाँ पे, I'm not too familiar with, like I cannot for example say word to word कि Keynesian economics क्या है, but I think from what you shared कि consumption को बढ़ाना या GDP को बढ़ाना is a goal, and that's how you sort of go from an economic depression to an economic prosperity. I think it's fair, like, matlab, but it's a limited. It only goes so far. For example, like to what end is I think a question that needs to be added on top. जिसमें कि point है कि so consumption को अगर हम देखें या let's say GDP को भी चीज देखें तो GDP is a proxy of things that people want to buy from each other in a nutshell. And what do you want to buy from things that make you better or like again increase your sort of sense of lived experiences. तो घूमने जा सकते हो, कितनी चीजें खरीद सकते हो, चीजें नहीं खरीद सकते हो, मतलब तो अगेन तो अब ये consumption can be physical products, consumption can be experiences. I think all of us understand that. अगर कोई भी trip पे गया है तो person understands it कि for example if you're staying in a beautiful place, it's there's only so much product value, but there's also an experience and emotional value. People also see this as or measure it as brand value on some financial balance sheets. तो point ये है कि you can and I think there is a guy Rory Sutherland, Ogilvy Mather UK का, I think he's the advertising or creative director. So he talks about कि engineering problems का जमाना मतलब काफी हद तक पूरा हो चुका है, मतलब या लेट्स से वहाँ पे incremental efforts नहीं है, तो you don't need to, for example वो इसका फेवरेट एग्जांपल है कि लंदन से पेरिस की ट्रेन है, अब तुम्हारे को यहाँ पे उन्होंने like they spent a few $billion to reduce the travel time by 40 minutes. उसका पॉइंट है कि 40 मिनट बचा के तुमने किया क्या, उसके बजाय अगर तुम थोड़ा पैसा डाल के वाईफाई अच्छा देते और I think is very funnily he talks about कि इतने पैसे में effectively मैं बहुत ही hot waiters और waitresses से मतलब free champagnes बंटवा सकता था सारे लोगों को, जिसकी वजह से वो 40 मिनट would have been a better experience for them and people would only be asking कि trains और slow कर दो rather than तेज कर दो. तो उसका भी point ये है कि मतलब जो value create करने की हम बात कर रहे हैं, consumption create करने की हम बात कर रहे हैं, that can vary and it is a function of कि इंसान क्या चाहता है. And in that sense it's not कि मतलब consumption किसी ने ऊपर से थोप दिया है. People want these things, people और वैसे ही need shape हुई हैं. Now maybe a generation comes around and says कि मतलब we want to question these consumption needs. Do we really need it, or do we need something different? And I think that's a phenomenon that repeats itself. But it would be very arrogant and obnoxious to say कि needs को completely खत्म कर देना चाहिए. Yeah, and जो ये need feel करता है, like मतलब that is just not wanted, especially in a country like India. India ने पिछले 30 सालों में जितना difference देखा है, 40 साल में difference देखा है हमारी parents की lifetime में, I don't think कोई भी country ने किसी भी time में इतना changes होते हुए देखे हैं from a technological standpoint, economic standpoint, social change standpoint. So I think there is like a lot of sort of diversity to these thoughts and practices. Some of them can be more rigid than others, but still at the same time I think I lost my train of thought. What was the so we were talking about key point क्या है consumption का. तो जो भी हम GDP को contribute कर रहे हैं वो हमारे things that we buy effectively contribute to GDP, and in that sense what Keynes is saying that stimulating a need for people to want more things and for people to create more things is a way you would increase the GDP, of course, like it's mathematical. But what do people want and what do you make people want? I think it's a moral and philosophical question that more brands and more advertisers and more consumers need to ask for themselves. And uske around, that is where the work is left.
And additionally, how do you go about fulfilling that need? Matlab,
correct. Yeah. So what do you need and how do you sort of satisfy for that need?
Correct. Agreed. I think मतलब वही तो
point तो तुमने कैसे start किया था इस चीज को कि क्या consumerism means degrowth? It may be or maybe not. I was telling कि मैं इससे पहले भी asked ChatGPT this question again. We can possibly bring up that right now. I'll try and fill that up. But essentially उसका भी कहना था कि hobby का मतलब it points out to certain facts कि it, for example, when I'm let's say buying a more durable product, तो अभी मैं शर्ट खरीदता हूँ 200 रुपए की 40 साल में, तो मैं 8,000 रुपए की एक शर्ट खरीद रहा हूँ. मतलब तो इससे मेरा GDP कंट्रीब्यूशन कहीं से वेरी नहीं हुआ, लेकिन I bought a better product and it probably like created more value at least in the person's mind. So in those cases, like you have changed a behavior, but your GDP necessarily hasn't changed. So it does not necessarily mean degrowth. We just need to sort of value different things and start paying for different things, things that sort of are in an alignment with the values that we have. So that's, I think, how we can round up this topic.
Right. Right, I think वही as I was reading also मतलब तो I think this fundamental equation is also मतलब what I kind of agree with, and I read a very good example around a sale of a car, let's say. तो गाड़ी बिक रही है, तो गाड़ी के साथ साथ उसके पार्ट्स बनाने वालों का, उसके पार्ट मैन्युफैक्चरर्स का, it's the whole ecosystem which is progressing as a whole, in one go, right, with one purchase of a car, so to say. So that ecosystem, I think theoretically that makes sense, but that also kind of now leads to the sort of disadvantages of, how would I put it, obnoxious consumerism, or promoting conspicuous consumerism effectively, right? Matlab where uh, so for example, I think this again, courtesy of Veritasium, I think it's a great channel, देखने चाहिए उसके videos. So this guy is basically, he goes on about various different topics. मतलब वो science के बारे में बात करता है, वो economic trends के बारे में बात करता है. तो there is this video which he has कि मतलब I don't remember the, I'll probably float the screenshot, but effectively what he's talking about there is कि from in the so when the bulb was invented, right, around 18 late 1800s, तो तब हमारा जो उसका average life of a bulb used to be around 500 hours, right, and this rose till mid 1920s, 1920 to 23 तक this had increased to 1200 hours.
Yeah.
But then supposedly matlab, and there's a name for it also apparently, Phoebus cartel. So there was a Phoebus cartel which had all the top companies, all the top bulb producers of the world from different parts of the globe, and they kind of met together to reduce this lifetime, because this was effectively leading to degrowth in their numbers, right? So this particular phenomenon, I think this is called planned obsolescence, if artificial obsolescence, so to say, right?
Apple does it all the time. मतलब हर साल iPhone का नया निकालना. मतलब
Yeah, I think for 30s में example, I think someone developed a cloth, मतलब कपड़ा एक बनाया था जो गंदा नहीं होता था,
right,
and which created problem for these laundry guys. क्योंकि अब कपड़े धुलने को नहीं, it was a big business. It still is a big business, right? So yeah, I think invention, I think कुछ degrow किए हैं हमने खुद से
correct,
to increase consumerism.
right. So मतलब this is what, मतलब वही वो जो अंधा होके कंज्यूमरिज्म को बढ़ाने के चक्कर में we also have these by products of negative practices, so to say, or wrong work, wrong production ethics, or wrong consumeristic ethics. I don't know what it should be.
I think today we were discussing in apparel also. I think जब से ये मिंत्रा आया है, and talking in context of more female apparel shopping, I don't think Myntra has replaced like your offline shopping. Myntra has added on to it. Like people used to go buy offline, right? Now it has not replaced offline shopping. It is additive, right? So people are just buying more, right? And hence these fast moving brands like Zara, H&M, Shein, who constantly, produce a lot of clothes, and people are just buying it. So if they were not there, like people are already satisfied without them. But it's an added opportunity because it brings in a lot of convenience, a lot of design.
Right. Plus, just to add, I think on that Myntra wala part only, this is, I think, a known case study also. मतलब initially to push for adoption, right? मतलब what they had done was, ये जो उनका policy अभी भी I think hold करता है कि free return app try करो और वापस भेज दो types, which again is sort of, मतलब if I look at it, if out of 10 things that I'm delivering, 9 are getting returned in such a fashion, or whatever that number is, we can look for that online, right? But now that is leading to, if I think of it from an e-commerce perspective, then it has gone through the whole cycle from the manufacturer to the consumer and then back again without anybody realizing the value there, right? So it's all cost and no returns. So वो काफी मतलब
yeah.
And I think there are in Myntra there are product hooks to encourage it. Now, if you have to return something, they refund it into your Myntra credit, which in turn, encourages you to buy again. It's a general hook, right? It's just a product philosophy which just got added, and it is like pushing this entire buying behavior.
Right. So I think we coming just trying to, so all of this what we are just discussing is kind of the cons, so to say, of just consumerism or blatant consumerism, so to say. मतलब would anything that you would like to add on top of this? Any of the, I think मैं और प्रभाकर तो बोल ही रहे थे तो.
No, I see it too. मतलब तो both planned obsolescence is a phenomena, is a real phenomena. Fast fashion is a real phenomena, and I think this is about pandering to a person's worst, let's say, worst wants. So people have all kinds of wants, and yeah, we have good instincts and bad instincts, and I think a lot of it is because like it is the easy, it's a path of least resistance, and it is working so far, so it chale ja raha hai. But of course, like these are of course examples in which consumerism and capitalism has gone wrong, and this is like to give it its due. मतलब जितना for all the wokeism की problems, like this is probably the kernel of truth that they are able to sort of carry to be culturally relevant आज की date में. But yeah, so I think it starts with taking more responsibility. जितने भी मेरी understanding अब बनती है इस बारे में कि consumers take more responsibility about what we are buying, businesses take more responsibility about how we are selling. तो मतलब for all Milton Friedman and John Maynard Keynes type के economists and like businesses who are modeling around that. Yes, of course, like you need to honor shareholders' concerns and like grow profits and grow your business, but to what end, I think is still a question that is left to answer for them, and the choices that they would make will shape the business and the industry as we go along. So I think again, so those are the points of conflict कि अब business क्या करे और consumer उससे क्या क्या करवाना चाहता है या मतलब consumer क्या चाहता है. So like वो चीजें, वो differences businesses, like everybody can sort of come together and understand it, and I think it starts with being more responsible around it कि what are you pandering to. So for example, fast food companies, मतलब उनको एक लिमिट है. जैसे अचार के केस में हम लोग कैसे लेते हैं कि like मतलब there is only, शुरुआत में I ordered a lot of अचार, ate it, like had digestion related problems, बहुत गैस बन रही थी या तो उस सेंस में मैंने चीजें like so there is only so much that you should use it as, and we've found that like मतलब about 1.5 to 2 kgs per person per year is like a requirement that like let's say even the most person who's most fond of pickles should probably have in the Indian context. Again, this number could be upwards or downwards, like we don't know. Well, this is our best guess, but and hence we are never trying to sort of sell people more pickles than that. Of course, if somebody wants to order it, we're not stopping it, but that's not where the incentives are aligned necessarily. Yeah, so that's the idea from a strategy, right? From strategy to how we are communicating about it. Idea ये है कि like मतलब around 2 से 2,500 रुपए की purchases करी बंदे ने, 1 किलो 2 किलो खरीदा, 3 किलो खरीदा, depending upon कितनी बड़ी family, and goes along. So I think every business can ask and answer these questions for themselves. Every consumer can ask and answer these questions for themselves in their own individual context, and that is where I felt कि वही थोड़ा progress लेते रहना. I think that is a good way to sort of approach it, instead of like again एक ये standards के साथ comparison ना, I think it breeds resentment. ये मैंने बचपन से महसूस किया है. स्कूल में बच्चों के दूसरे बच्चों के साथ कंपैरिजन कर लो, बड़े होके अपने साथ मतलब दूसरों के करियर के साथ कंपैरिजन कर लो. आई डोंट थिंक that standard necessary. I mean, it has a folly. For all it's good, it also sort of puts your mind in a I would say unproductive stance. So yeah, I think to your point, the planned obsolescence and fast fashion are a real phenomena for sure, but I think a lot of it is because it's the path of least resistance, and not many people are yet thinking about it as deeply.
Just adding 10-minute delivery to the list.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm thinking. So, by the way, I read an interesting article. वो कह रहा था कि Blinkit के शायद was the subject of the article कि तुम 10 मिनट में मे भी ग्रोसरी नहीं लेना चाहते, इंडियंस ग्रोसरी नहीं लेना चाहते, लेकिन 10 मिनट में शायद और सर्विसेज हैं. So for example, printing is becoming a big business for these folks. तो तुम अपने Blinkit ऐप पे अपलोड कर दो, पास की किसी भी शॉप के पास ऑर्डर जाएगा और प्रिंट होके तुम्हारे पास घर पे सील्ड एनवेलप आ जाएगा. Now I think that is okay. I think I can see the value that it sort of saves. मैंने बहुत बार आधे ऐसे 20 मिनट 25 मिनट की रन्स किए हैं unnecessarily. I could avoid that. So I think उस सेंस में वही 10 मिनट डिलीवरी, बट टू व्हाट एंड? लाइक मतलब ये चाहिए कि लास्ट में मैं खाना बनाते बनाते मसाला भूल गया। आई थिंक दैट वाज अ फार स्ट्रेच के
आप 10 मिनट में खाना तभी चाहिए कि आपने तड़का वड़का सब डाल दिया एकदम, क्या हमारी
कि नींबू नहीं है हमारे पास। अरे यार मतलब इट्स वेरी रेयर दैट हैपेंस।
हाँ।
तो wait, to what end you're using that technology or like service? I think that makes a lot of sense. And
I think there's also just
and
building on top
solutions
of,
maybe, हाँ बताओ।
हाँ इस पे जस्ट एक वो भी है ना, मतलब अब वंस पॉइंट इज, आई थिंक आई हैव आल्सो ट्राइड 10 मिनट डिलीवरी राइट, मतलब व्हेन आई वाज इन बैंगलोर, तो वो सब हुआ ही है, मतलब बिकॉज इट वाज मोर कि सभी कर रहे थे, बट इफ यू इवन इफ यू आर ऑर्डरिंग यू डोंट वांट इट आल्सो, पीपल आर गिविंग इट राइट। तो आफ्टर दैट आई थिंक दैट आल्सो लीड्स टू बिहेवियर चेंज आल्सो, जो लोग
मतलब wait, and then to champion it as a consumer innovation and like मतलब I think पता नहीं, it seems pretentious to me at least. So because yeah, I mean you're changing behaviors, but again like मतलब what's the end result of it? I think it's a question left unanswered very
अगर मैं
convenient.
हाँ वही, अगर एक स्टेप बैक लेके मैं इस पे बात करूँ तो इट वुड बी मोर लाइक कि यू आर नाउ इफेक्टिवली यू आर किलिंग द प्लानिंग स्किल्स दैट अ पर्सन probably would have, right? मतलब you are
you could say that.
मतलब grocery planning is a task, right? If you are running a household, grocery planning is a task and you are just making people irresponsible over there, right? मतलब वो आदमी अब अगर मान लो कल को tier 2 टाउन में, like I am in Shimla right now, I have to go out, I don't have 10 minute delivery, right? तो मतलब दिस इज जस्ट, और वो शेपिंग मतलब अगेन टू व्हाट एंड, मतलब इट्स नॉट यूनिवर्सल कि आपको 10 मिनट में अर्जिंग मिल जाएगी। आप एज अगर मैं मेटा लेवल पे बात करूं तो इट्स मोर अगेन किलिंग योर प्लानिंग स्किल्स इन जनरल, मतलब इट वुड हैव सम इम्पैक्ट ऑब्वियसली, इट्स नॉट नेसेसरी कि तुम्हारा 100% स्किल्स इम्पैक्ट हो जाएंगे, बट there is still a difference pre and post in my mind at least, matlab.
Yeah, I think I completely agree to this. I think when Insta or Facebook started, people didn't realize that it might have some, emotional or psychological impact. This might be some side effect to how we are going. I think 10-minute delivery is a solution to a problem which doesn't exist, right?
Correct.
And now that they have built a solution that might create another problems, right? Yeah, but I think these are the things which we look closely. Have you guys
Again,
heard
but
about?
I just want to like 10 minute delivery पे इतनी I think negative rap भी मिलती है, which is like a lot of it is deserved. But थोड़ा सा ये भी चीज़ है कि जैसे अभी मैंने printing वाली problem बोली, I think that is like okay, so you are probably like you pointed yourself or oriented yourself in the right direction, and this is like a good outcome of it. But I think one other question is left to answer is like मतलब again and all the credit to like people who are doing it and trying to solve for it. I mean, it requires some serious effort, of course. But matlab, again, is this the best place to spend our energies and attention? I think is again a question. Ki to what end? So I think modern convenience is a factor, is going to be important as it shapes. प्लस मतलब यूपीआई टाइप के एग्जांपल्स के थ्रू अगर हम वैसा कुछ इनोवेशन यहाँ पे डिलीवर कर सकते हैं तो अगेन इट बिल्ड्स इनटू इंडिया सॉफ्ट कैपिटल, कैन ब्रिंग इन मोर इन्वेस्टमेंट, मोर कंजम्पशन. So there could be some good truth to it. So again, I just wanted to sort of cover that up. कि थोड़ा negative rap के साथ, like I think there's good in it too.
It's a delivery. It's a full-blown delivery fleet on the street, which is a superpower, right? But extending it to like a 10-minute delivery or whatever, that is like a far-fetched thing, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
in those cases where you need people who are, doing your task. It is essentially like 5 people doing 5 their individual tasks against one person running all the 5
Right.
tasks.
I read कि किस तरीके से इतना inefficient है, like मतलब you're wasting time, you're wasting fuel, all of it because of it.
Yeah.
बट मतलब वही आई थिंक कुछ नीच यूज केस हो सकता है प्रॉब्ली, एज यू सेड, मतलब प्रिंटिंग वाला मे बी इट्स मेकिंग सेंस टू यू, तो मतलब देयर
I think देखो इसमें फंडामेंट ऐसे चीजों में एसेट यूटिलाइजेशन इज प्रोबेबली द कोर मेट्रिक टू गो फॉर, व्हिच इज कि वो बंदा जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल उसका प्रिंटर खाली पड़ा है और उसके वहां पे एक लड़का खाली बैठा है, तो इससे बेटर है कि मैं यहाँ पे कोई डिमांड जनरेट करके उनको काम दे दूं एंड इट ऑब्जेक्टिवली कंट्रीब्यूट्स टू द इकोनॉमी. तो उस सेंस में इट एड्स वैल्यू आई वुड से. बट वही कि मतलब जो नीड थी नहीं जबरदस्ती क्रिएट करी, उस पर मतलब हजारों करोड़ रुपए खर्च करे टू मैन्युफैक्चर दैट डिमांड, आई थिंक दैट्स एन ओवरकिल. तो yeah, I think that's and all of these criteria ना, तो जो कॉन्शियस कैपिटलिज्म के बारे में जितनी चीजें मैंने जानी, So this stakeholder orientation, to identify all of your stakeholders and what's good for them, like all of these considerations. Yeah, conscious capitalism ke jo frameworks in general, we can probably talk more about it if in future episodes or in this one. Ki in frameworks ko ye sab guiding questions, and I think just answering them and contemplating on it every once in a while can sort of open new opportunities for businesses to do more good. So yeah, that could be good guardrails too, in terms of like your vision is not going too far. Uh,
नहीं, I think सही है, मतलब वही तो this we kind of deep dive a lot on the cons, so to say, of the वो consumer, and
Already
I
angst
find
against it, yeah.
angst, probably the angst against it, and I think this also this kind of paves our way to what we want to talk about effectively more, right? Which is conscious consumerism. So if you were to define, let's say, conscious consumerism in one sentence, how would you do that, matlab? And
Yeah, I did this earlier as well in another podcast, and I don't think that definition has changed over the years now. Consciousness, I relate it to very fundamentally as being more aware. So I mean, and it's as practical as like looking at your household spend or household budget. क्या चीजों पे spend करो, are they conscious or not? Like just answering that. And I think it's as practical as that, and it gets as metaphysical and as philosophical as you want it to. कि आप जो spend कर रहे हो वो क्यों कर रहे हो? Do you really need that vacation, or you're trying to fill a gap? Like मतलब that is the kind of physical or philosophical depths that you could go into. But like I said, on a very practical level, you can just audit your budget and like look at क्या purchases I can make more economical, where do the options exist, क्योंकि हर एक चीज में जो आप करना चाहोगे, the options are not going to exist, or they are not going to be as at the same quality, because just by the virtue of fact fewer people are doing it. तो yeah, I mean, you have to make a lot of considerations along the way. So ऐसा नहीं है कि आज सोच लिया और मैं कल से conscious consumer बन जाऊंगा. Like I was saying, तो मतलब for everything that I've known and understood over the years, like I barely do 10%, 15%. I don't know. Like I haven't audited it yet. Probably there's like a good chunk of it, because like vacations or hiking or excursions, maybe keep things like that in front of our mind. But other than that, like I'll have to probably see. So what amount of like that those values are translating into your action? I think that defines a conscious consumer. Like so, being aware at any level and translating it into a consumer action is the definition of conscious consumer to me. And that awareness can come like इसमें इतने ज़्यादा dimensions हैं, because like I don't think I can summarize it in a line or so. Everybody has, like I said, different experience, different things that motivate them, different things that they care about. So जो भी चीज़ें आप लोगों के लिए खुद passionate है, I think you can start there. Anything that you are doing. For example, this is the way I asked the question to my agency, the work that I was spending most of my time. Where do I want to, what do I want to communicate about? Where do I spend the most energy? So I think in those ways, like a business can get, and an individual can get more conscious about themselves. Start asking questions. And
I think you used
is anyone who is anywhere on the spectrum. So the first question, 100th question in, 1000th question in, like you could be anywhere along the spectrum, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, I had one question. You mentioned conscious capitalism as well. Can you define that as well?
Conscious capitalism is again to applying that same framework. Key capitalism is how do you do business? How do you make products and sell products? So हर एक उस element को again to inspect to what end am I doing it? मैं vendors को squeeze करना चाह रहा हूँ, या मैं customers को मतलब spoil करना चाह रहा हूँ, मतलब all of those questions can come in at each of these levels. So conscious capitalism is again an increased sense of awareness applied to the context of business building, and conscious consumerism is about your daily consumption choices.
Got it.
Right. Understood. So I think conscious consumerism by so as you were saying, aspects वाला जो part है, I think there are definitely multiple aspects as you मतलब एक socially conscious है कि नहीं, politically conscious है कि नहीं, environmentally conscious है कि नहीं, and so on, right? These are some of the abstract ways to think of it, but I think in the doc as well जो हम लोगों ने circulate किया था, उस पे भी I had commented, probably I'll make a chart and display it on the video as well. But basically I was trying to go through the whole process from the need to finally the recycling part of it, right? मतलब effectively end-to-end journey of the whole if I were to put it that way, consumerism value chain, right? कि कस्टमर का नीड आया, देन उस पे R&D हुआ कि प्रोडक्ट क्या बनना है एंड सो ऑन, मतलब रॉ मटेरियल्स प्रोडक्शन, all the multiple steps which will be shown on the screen, and basically अब उसके around I think the idea is कि how is the company faring, मतलब that is how I am just trying to look at it in an objective manner, right? If I were to define a rating, so to say, but the point is कि ये जो जितने भी अपने पास steps हैं, इन सब के across, first of all I think I get कि मेरे को conscious होना पड़ेगा, and just thinking about these steps, how do I even get to, first of all, मतलब how do I even get access to this information for a particular brand, so to say, at different stages of the product life cycle या consumerism value chain, so to say, कि what are they doing, how are they faring, and how does it stand in terms of absolute scale में मैं अगर किसी तरह इनको rate कर पाता तो how do I even go about that?
Right.
तो मतलब
तो मतलब इसमें पहले तो कॉन्शियस कैपिटलिज्म को अगर अंडरस्टैंड करने के हम लोग एक और फंक्शनल फ्रेमवर्क जो उन्होंने किताब में दिया है, सो जॉन मैकी, द फाउंडर ऑफ होल फूड्स, एंड राज सिसोदिया, हु इज अ प्रोफेसर एट अ बिजनेस स्कूल हियर, they have spent time to put together this conscious capitalism ki book, and they talk about a four-fold framework, which also is at the foundation of the conscious capitalism movement in much of the North America as well as like in Europe. So it talks about 4 pillars. The first is like starting with the purpose. So you can equate it to Simon Sinek's Start with Why for the most part. Right. So what's the purpose with which you are building the company? And just asking that question at every level. Why are you doing things the way you are doing? That kind of thing. So build your purpose and orient your organization around it, and constantly audit and assess it. Ki, like, are we moving towards that purpose or away from purpose? Every decision that we are today taking, is that towards that purpose or away from that purpose? That kind of like, so it can be, like I said, it can be a strategic direction, but it can also be a practical guardrail on what to do and what not to do in terms of company policies and procedures. The second thing is stakeholder orientation. So it talks about customers, vendors, investors, all of them as stakeholders. So for example, just like अभी मैं देखता हूँ कि investor relations वाली side पे companies do so much. Customer relations भी you can say कि CRM वाली side पे people do a lot. Similarly, vendor relations management वाली side पे that's another vertical. Like, so again, how do you think about all of those things and do it in a more caring and empathetic and conscious manner? Is the second pillar. The third pillar is how do you develop yourself as a leader? So, and it applies to the CEO, of course, but the entire executive team and any important leader in the company for that matter. How do you grow yourself? How do you stay humble? How do you can build your skills, build your capabilities to work with different kinds of people, deal with all kinds of situations, and be able to guide the company in a way that is more purposeful and meaningful for everyone involved. So that is the third dimension. The fourth dimension is how do you extend it to culture? So once you have enabled it at the level of an individual, how do you percolate it to the entire culture? What kind of systems, environments, procedures, policies do you put in place to make more and more people orient themselves in that direction? So that is a fourfold framework to understand conscious capitalism in general. What was the other part of your question earlier?
So basically what I was asking for was, as a consumer, if I were to evaluate, or let's say I decide कि मेरे को क्या product को बदलना है, but what do I replace it with, and how do I even get to know about such products? Right. How do I evaluate? अगर मेरे को कोई product पता भी चल रहा है, अब Instagram, Facebook, everything has ads, right? तो अब कुछ ना कुछ तो मिल ही जाता है. Even if we are talking, I'll get some ad tomorrow, right? तो the point being कि अब वो मेरे को जो ad आ रहा है, if I चलो let's assume कि उसने discovery एक हद तक solve कर दी, let's assume, but how do I now, if I know a brand, how do I now evaluate on, मतलब how do I get to know whether this is a conscious brand or not, and how do I even evaluate, मतलब right, that question.
So yeah, I don't think there is like very there are some sort of certifications and labels that companies are already using. So for example, cruelty free, vegan, GMO free, no artificial chemicals or preservatives or additives, no food colors, ingredients and nothing else, wala kind of positioning from whole truth foods. So I think that is one level at which you can sort of screen. There is B Corp certification for brands here. A lot of Indian brands are B Corp certified as well. B Corp certification is an international certification, which is like a detailed audit of around your corporate governance, your operating सारा SOP. तो ISO के जिस तरीके के compliances होते हैं, जो ISO कभी spirit में लगता नहीं है companies में, in my experience. पर Wait, so it's a detailed guideline, and it's a more conscious framework, a more 21st century framework than like an outdated framework to sort of understand how does business do things, and is that cater to the environmental, social, governance standards that people might have. Well, it reminds me there is क्या?
Just wanted to ask, क्या B Corp बोला आपने?
B Corp certification, yes. B
Okay.
Corporation. I think Benefit Corporation is the reason why it says it's called a B Corp. There is a zebra startup community which talks about not building unicorns but zebras. So again, more resilient, more sustainable, more profitable kind of businesses. So yeah, I mean, so you can see what sort of associations, what sort of programs brand associates with itself with. For example, this No Nasties brand built out of Goa. It's a clothing brand. They are associated with this. I think they are associated with the B Corp program, as well as the Zebra Startup program. But yeah, I mean, I've seen, for example, Indian brands and startup owners participate in these communities. I mean, fairly. It's not a lot, but you can still find people. So there is some sense of that. So those are like some proxies that you can go for. But then again, like it doesn't mean कि we have like very clear standards. And for that matter, वैसे actually अगर आज की डेट में FSSAI के food levels वगैरह भी देखो, जितना I think this I'm forgetting the name of the influencer, food farmer, yeah, the guy who was like really recently shot up, and all he's talking about like food packaging के labels. या Whole Truth Foods की पुरानी कहानी, जो fit shit की कहानी है कि like मतलब सारे labels खराब हैं, like they're pouring sugar into you and bad carbs into you. So yeah, I think what was my point? I lost that.
No, I think what you're saying was कि evaluating. The overall theme was कि how do I evaluate?
So evaluating. So like what does brand talk about? What do they act on? दूसरे customers के review. So for example, if you can inspect, you can like go around and ask about this brand to potential customers, meet their suppliers, vendors wherever it's possible. If the company is in your city, you might as well go to their office, meet with their people. I think that's like some very primary, depending on how much do you want to engage in. But right now, like there is broadly speaking a lack of communication from the brands, as well as let's say independent standards that can sort of like pull collective action towards it. But that's not to undermine every effort that all of the other labels have already put in. So there's definitely some of that. But in terms of identifying conscious brands and shopping from conscious brands, there is more that can be done for sure. I also remember a store by the name of Brown Living. I think it's this store. This company is based out of Mumbai, and they sell products that are so Brown Living is, I think, a mixture between green living and let's say the unconscious consumerist way of life. So Brown Living sort of curates your more thoughtful, more fair trade, more sustainable products for your home, and you can shop from them as a single retailer. So yeah, so there are like examples of that, and the space is evolving, and there's definitely a lot more that can be done to help.
Just as a consumer thinking about whatever you said, I think two parts to it. First, I think it sounds like a lot of work for me, right? When I'm making that call. So definitely what you also said was कि independent standard / communication के lack तो है ना, from basically overall एक knowledge gap of sorts exists there, which can be filled either via content or maybe via some other, for example, brown living, right? So jo, which you mentioned, right? That is first part of it. Second is also let's say even if I am able, if I want to do all of this work, right? तो जो brand कह रहा है, जो customers के reviews आ रहे हैं, all of that तो is fairly transparent. But so for example, if I were to again say कि वो जो 13 factors अपने हैं, 12 factors अपने हैं, उनमें I am rating, and from these 2-3 data sources I get a rating of, let's say, +5, assuming my scale is -5 to +5. 2-3 factors पे +5 है, बाकी factors पे मुझे पता नहीं है. It may be a net negative brand at the end of it, right? मतलब it's just that the publicity, the brand image is too well placed in the market. तो अब तो that is one again tangent to my and that is why I was even asking कि इसको कैसे मैं देखूंगी, मतलब for example if I want to look at let's say कि यार raw materials कहाँ produce, कैसे कौन कहाँ से ला रहे हैं लोग, how are they sourcing their raw materials, right, or what are their net emissions throughout their supply chain, throughout this whole value chain that we are talking about. तो what मतलब where do I see that, how do I get access to that, कुछ है मतलब ऐसा companies are, I think they are supposed to publish some progress around SDGs. I'm not sure मतलब in India वो है कि नहीं. I think US में मैंने पढ़ा कि वो कुछ तो publish करना ही पड़ता है उनको yearly report भी. But just this is the broad question so to say कि यार मतलब मेरे पास ऐसा नहीं है कि एक या दो dimensions, right? There are multiple dimensions. How do I come to an objective evaluation so to say of a company?
I think it is constrained by the information that's there available in the first place. So, for example, the kind of question that you're asking कि एक maybe अगर तुम आम का अचार खा रहे हो तो उसका पूरा कार्बन फुटप्रिंट क्या है पूरी जर्नी में. I mean, it's difficult for me as a brand to know. It is difficult for. I mean, we can still, of course, like I think, find proxies, and there are. If you put our minds to it, we'll probably have a solution. But yeah, I mean, it's again not. It's another effort on top of everything else that you are doing. So a lot of this information is not published in the first place, and this stuff there is like so internet has solved for awareness, internet has solved for let's say जैसे ads से आ रहे हैं, तो I think that also solves for a problem कि you don't need to go out and look for products. The advertisers are telling you things that you can potentially sort of consider or reconsider in your life. ठीक है, you can take that as a cue, see if that person is credible, making enough sense, and sort of go from there. But I think starting from a theoretical framework कि मेरे को like objectively know करना है, I think आज की डेट में you'll more often than not you'll head into a wall. So yeah, I mean I think from where I see it too, like there is a lack of sense making apparatus around it. कि कोई बंदा जो बोल रहा है वो ग्रीन वॉशिंग कर रहा है, because of course like हर जगह malevolence है या manipulation है, and there are people who are trying to use it, use any other thing, like Gary Vaynerchuk की famous line है, marketers ruin everything. So like people try like every new trend that like just like I jumped onto the opportunity, many other people did, and yeah, and in terms of trying different things, they can potentially sort of spoil that in that sense. But yeah, I think the sense making, to your point, sense making apparatus is needed. Good way to go about it is, in my experience, like just start from the information that you are first aware of, things that you can understand and can sort of make out, evaluate people's credibility around it, speak to people in your network who come from that region, come from or have thought more about it. So, for example, if you have a college friend who has worked in a FMCG production line, that person can tell you a lot about your beauty and personal care products. So just speaking, I think the podcast like this, I think this is precisely why podcast, the idea of a podcast around topics like this makes a lot of sense and meaning to me. Ki, you can talk to people who are working on these lines as we speak, and these are not necessarily like public leaders who have like built brands and like the kind of typical profiling that we see of people, but it's more like these organic conversations, and in that sense these approximate more like Joe Rogan kind of conversations. It's casual, it's conversational, it's about both two people or more people trying to make sense of something. I think yeah, there's space for that, there's opportunity for that, there's need for that. I think that's what I'm saying here.
Nice.
Just to add here, I was thinking back of the mind that I think in order to be conscious, I think less consumerism is also conscious consumerism.
Good.
Like just cutting down stuff, and I think then you become more aware on the good products, because you are really focused when you go out and buy stuff, right? I mean, if you are just buying like clothes once a year or once in 2 years, because that's all you really need, right? And then if you go out, you are more focused on these things, and I think that's what is transcendence that we were discussing earlier. Yeah.
No, I agree. So, but and like whether, for example, US may, I'm not sure you may have seen this. There's a couple of guys who wrote the book Minimalism. Went around the country, did a like long documentary around their lifestyle, and started to champion minimalism in general. Again, buy less, buy more consciously, kind of message. And I think it holds merit in a lot of cases. A lot of people find it meaningful and do it. uh, I don't see it as like a why. So I think there is something to people. Austerity na is not something that people take very kindly. कि मतलब मेरे को किसी चीज पे कट डाउन करना पड़ रहा है. I think it gives it gives yourself a subconscious message कि मतलब you are less, you're lesser than who you are. I don't know. It could just be a psychosis at this point in time. Maybe we'll resolve it and get through it as we go along. But I think there is some of that. So minimalism. और अगर गवर्नमेंट वाली साइड पे भी देखो, यूएस में मतलब इतना खर्चा है जीडीपी वाली फॉर ऑल देयर प्रॉब्लम्स. तो कंजम्पशन टू योर पॉइंट, मतलब जीडीपी प्रोबेबली कम होना चाहिए कंट्रीज का, या ज्यादा जीडीपी अगर हम फॉर एग्जांपल ये चीजें वैल्यू कर रहे हैं. पर मैं जो शुरुआत में कह रहा था, जीडीपी इज अ प्रॉक्सी ऑफ थिंग्स दैट वी वैल्यू एंड हाउ मच वी वांट टू पे फॉर इट. सो इट डज नॉट नेसेसरली नीड टू कम फ्रॉम मोर प्रोडक्ट्स, मोर फिजिकल प्रोडक्ट्स. यूएस ने वो मॉडल चैंपियन किया है. Probably they need to make a switch and think more on technology and services and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean,
I think दो एंगल.
जीडीपी की हम बात करते हैं. दूसरी चीज दूसरी तरफ बात थी कि मतलब ऑस्टेरिटी की मतलब आप अपने खर्चे खत्म करो. एजुकेशन पे इतना पैसा खर्च करने का लाइक फॉर जो अभी विवेक रामास्वामी का मैसेज है कि बहुत सारा फेडरल स्पेंड फालतू है. सो वैसी चीजें कट डाउन करो. वॉर पे स्पेंड फालतू है. इन जनरल ग्रीस की इकोनॉमी जब फेल करी थी तो उनको भी यही बोला गया कि आप अपने खर्चे कम करो. दे वर स्पेंडिंग मोर देन दे वर अर्निंग और लाइक पेइंग इन टैक्सेस फॉर दैट मैटर. तो but that austerity wala message does not land well with people en masse. That's my experience. And I think minimalism ke message mein there's something to that that doesn't make more people likely to do it. But at the same time, like the answer in a lot of cases is consuming less. And यार वही मतलब पैटर्न्स जैसे हम लोग वैल्यूज चेंज करेंगे तो कोई चीज कम होगी. फॉर एग्जांपल मे बी यू आर बाइंग लेस एंड आल्सो यू आर प्रोबब्ली बाइंग less from the people who are most polluters. Let's say अगर environmental के point of view से मैं relevance एक specific context में बोलूँ तो ज़्यादा pollutant करने वाले से मे भी तुम कम वाले की तरफ जाओगे. तो like your consumption can shift or reduce in a lot of cases, but at the same time you might be ऐसा हो सकता है वो पैसे को तुम बचा के ना कहीं और खर्च करो and in a different direction that you find more meaningful. So in that sense, GDP is not going to contract, your spend is not necessarily going to come, it's going to shift places.
I just wanted to bring out this one thing I observed. I think in US, compared to US versus India, I think we have some 15 SKUs when it comes to this beverage category, like a Coca-Cola.
अच्छा.
Right? Whereas in US, it is like 10 times.
अब एक बार में 70 तरीके की बियर मिलती है, मतलब बहुत ज्यादा चॉइसेस हैं. Yeah, और इंडिया फॉर ऑल इट्स डाइवर्सिटी, मतलब आई थिंक मैंने इस पे पहले बात भी करी. इंडिया फॉर ऑल इट्स डाइवर्सिटी इतनी कम चॉइसेस है ब्रांड्स की एंड प्रोडक्ट्स की इन जनरल. You're right. Yeah, please go ahead. Where are we going with this?
So, like, if you go to a New York, this is something which my friend was telling. In New York, he went to a supermarket, and there were like 300 SKUs of this cola brand, like भर के brands थे वहाँ पे, right? And now, if you see, there's a correlation, right? If you compare, say, a tier 2 city of India and New York, there's a huge difference, and there is also a correlation that there you have more consumerism, more choice, people earn more, and the cycle is running very rapidly. Because more and more brand you bring in, the more people consume, the more the businesses earn, and everyone is part of the economy, right? Secondly, like, I'm from Kanpur. I went to Indore last year, and Indore is like a thriving, flourishing city of MP, and it looks like that, right? जब वहाँ पे आप market में निकलो तो बरकत दिखती है, right? Because दुकानें सजी हुई हैं, there's huge options. Like, there's a stark difference between how people shop in Kanpur and how people shop in Indore. right? And which in turn reflects in their behavior, in their attitude. I generally found people in Indore to be more welcoming, more warm. I don't know, it's just a general observation. I think the more you consume, probably after a point of time, the societal happiness index increases. It might. And I don't know, I can't comment on New York's happiness index, but there was a definite correlation between, like, I think that's what contributes
तो
to
क्या
a
फर्क था
thriving.
इंदौर में और कानपुर में,
इंदौर
कंजम्पशन हैबिट में क्या फर्क था? आई एम ट्राइंग टू अंडरस्टैंड दिस बेटर. व्हाट डिड यू सी?
यार, सो आप अगर माइक्रो लेवल पे देखो, आई डेंट फाइंड एनी इंदौर का शॉप जहां पे भीड़ ना हो, राइट? इट्स जस्ट मोर लाइवली, right? It gives you a feeling that yes, business is running, it's flourishing, it is thriving, right? You go to food outlets, even you go to apparel outlets, right? There's a lot of people who are just shopping around, right? And business owners are happy as well in turn, right? When you go to a Kanpur, like, business owners are not that happy, and I'm not saying that comes from their fundamental nature. I feel it's just about how, yeah, yeah. So I don't know if
but
cutting down is a good idea, because I see a correlation between happiness. I don't know. I think it just adds on to, like, economy is thriving, people start earning more money, and in turn they become happier.
या आई थिंक
I
इसमें ना इसी साइड पे, या यश तुम्हें बोलना है पहले तो तुम बोलो.
हाँ, just one I think just what I wanted to say was कि वो I think the way प्रभाकर तुम जैसे देख रहे हो ना अभी, it's more a unidimensional kind of thing कि consumption बढ़ गया घट गया उससे you are trying to correlate, but then there are also other societal factors. Indore is the cleanest city in India, right? And it's amongst the top cleanest cities of the world. तो मतलब there is a definite social level पे कुछ अलग है वहाँ पे, and that probably translates into everything. Obviously consumption would play a part to it, but in my mind I think that is also थोड़ा सोसाइटल कॉन्स्ट्रक्ट्स पे भी बात आ जाएगी वहाँ पे कि यार कैसे सोसाइटी वायर्ड भी है इन द
I think
फर्स्ट.
घर साफ रखोगे तो मन साफ रहेगा टाइप.
I think the right question here is to ask that if Indore ka consumerism did not increase. See, Indore has been thriving since a long time. I think they call it financial capital of MP or something like that. So अगर इंदौर में ऐसा नहीं होता, इतना कंज्यूमरिज्म नहीं होता, बिजनेस इतना थ्राइव नहीं कर रहा होता, क्या वो क्लीनेस्ट सिटी बना पाते हैं? Right, because clean city comes from, like, a fund budget, all those things, and I believe Indore had it. I don't know how that works, but there might have been some correlation here as well, right? If you are able to make your city much better, the city is definitely generating a lot of cash flow, right? It's a cash flow positive city, and then they invest into better things like, cleaning and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
तो मैं ये कह रहा था इसमें जो आई थिंक देयर इज दिस स्टडी दैट टॉक्स अबाउट एज द सोसाइटीज GDP per capita increases, people start to get more aware about things like forest cover and forestation levels in general. So I think again most of the countries in the West have probably seen their forest cover increase as their GDPs have crossed that level. तो एंड आई थिंक अगेन टू योर पॉइंट, वो हम मैस्लो हायरार्की में भी बात कर रहे थे. एक लेवल पे तुम्हारे को चाहिए सेफ्टी, सिक्योरिटी और GDP एंड अगेन द रिसोर्सेज टू बी एबल टू डू व्हाट यू एक्चुअली वांट. काफी चीजें हम मजबूरी में कर रहे होते हैं. तो आई एम श्योर मतलब कानपुर में बिजनेसमैन मतलब अपनी परेशानियों से घिरा हुआ है. मतलब तो उस सेंस में लाइक वही फ्रस्ट्रेशन शायद दिखेगी कि कस्टमर से डील करते वक्त या कुछ, या मतलब ट्रैफिक जाम है तो मतलब सुबह गड्ढे में मतलब दिक्कत हो रही है तो उसके बाद फिर लाइक दैट ट्रांसलेट्स. आई थिंक देयर इज लॉट ऑफ दैट. पर आई एग्री विद यू कि हायर GDP, more prosperity is like brings it has the potential to bring out better behavior and definitely provides the resources to do it.
Yeah. Correct. I think it's like a game where you sacrifice something to grow very fast, and then you clean your shit later. I don't know if that is the approach society should take or should not take, because from a historical point of view, we didn't know that petrol is environmentally bad, leaving a lot of harmful gases, and it leads to air pollution. But the need of that time was probably commerce, very fast commerce, like things, transportation, network, railway, and people were using vehicles and all. And that time they had a good option, and then they sort of increased. Like prima facie, the example is US, right? Developed very very fast, and now they are at that stage where they are solving much better things. um, so yeah, so the choice is that there are cheaper resources but not sustainable, but you can grow as a country, as a city, very fast, and then you sort of come back and sort of clean up whatever you did, or you do all the things right from the first place, right? That this is how we will grow. It is a slow process, but yeah, we'll reach there.
I think the way I see it कि दोनों चीजों को साथ में रख, so like many things in life, ये पैराडॉक्स को साथ में कैरी करने की चीज है. ये जैसे बिल गेट्स के बारे में जितना क्रिटिसिज्म उसका होता है कि लाइक मतलब ही लाइक stormed over competition while getting up, and I think that all of that behavior or that karma comes back to hit him when people talk about कि उसका वैक्सीनेशन के ऊपर कितना वो है इन्फ्लुएंस है, या वो फार्म लैंड्स खरीद रहा है, और वो मतलब वो तो अगेन ऑल ऑफ दैट अननेसेसरी बैड रैप इज कमिंग फ्रॉम दैट कर्मा. तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. आई थिंक इफ यू डू एनीथिंग एंड एवरीथिंग जस्ट टू गेट टू अ सर्टेन पॉइंट एंड देन थिंक कि मैं सारा जाके क्लीन अप कर दूंगा, आई डोंट थिंक बिल गेट्स कैन डू एनीथिंग दैट कैन सॉर्ट ऑफ क्लियर दैट इमेज वंस एंड फॉर ऑल. Maybe he can, I don't know. Well, everybody can redeem themselves, but in that case I would say it pays forward to sort of be more conscious while you're doing it. That's the approach that I've sort of adopted for myself, because there's another thing that says like if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go longer, you go with other people. So I think that there's merit to compromising along the way, or like being more thoughtful along the way, and like taking more people along, taking more considerations and responsibilities along as you grow. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि मतलब जो आपको 1 करोड़ पे चीज नहीं मिल रही है वो 10 करोड़ पे मिल जाएगी. मतलब ऑब्वियसली कुछ चीजें हैं, बट मतलब उन चीजों के आप आउंसेस ऑलरेडी स्टार्ट कर सकते हो टू डू इट. जहाजी स्टोर के केस में एग्जांपल लूं अगर, तो हम लोगों ने कमिट किया था कि हम लोग जब प्रॉफिट्स होंगे तो उसके एक सर्टेन परसेंटेज गर्ल चाइल्ड एजुकेशन की तरफ देंगे. वी वर नॉट देयर येट, बट वी स्टार्टेड सॉर्ट ऑफ एम्प्लॉइंग women who were like young college going women who wanted to do part time work, and they could like paint clothes. So in that sense we were like supporting that mission that we, it wasn't like कि मतलब मैं 50 करोड़ का हो जाऊंगा और मेरे पास 1 करोड़ प्रॉफिट होगा तो मैं उसमें से 10 लाख रुपए दे दूंगा या 40 लाख दे दूंगा या 50 लाख दे दूंगा. It was more like कि मैं अभी क्या कर सकता हूँ उस गोल की तरफ. And I think it makes your business more purposeful. It makes it more meaningful for other people to sort of associate with them and to associate with you. So to do philosophically, I feel thinking about it along the way might pay more than just like growing for growth's sake and then sort of trying to come back and correct it all.
I think the parallel where I was drawing this entire thing was our typical product management. I think Yash will agree to that. There's a constant tussle.
Technical debt कितना है ले सकते हो along the way.
Yes, it's a debt. It's a debt in true form.
Correct.
Design debt भी लेते हैं साथ में मतलब.
and there are product debts as well.
Correct.
Where a PM doesn't gets frustrated and like scope it out. But yeah, I think at a city level, at a country level, also you have two choices when it comes to consumerism. There are factors to take into consideration, like whatever we were discussing, and I think it's a balance. Where do you take that? And it's very interesting. I think where do you take that decision to move fast, right? Because and that's the trade-off that I was talking about. It's a trade-off between two things at a country level and at a city level. And where you actually take a trade-off and say, "Ki I know I'm not being very conscious, right? But this is the need of the hour, and there I'm taking a decision.
I know.
Yeah.
Bias for action versus being more conscious, more thoughtful is a constant tussle. I think what has helped me is like surrounding myself with people who are of the opposite temperament. So, for example, Jhaji store ke case mein, when we are working, Mayank is the person who wants to take action and like move things along the way, and I'm the person who is like talking about कि नहीं इसको ऐसे और plan करना चाहिए और systemize करना चाहिए. These things we could avoid. So I think and again जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ like that was Jordan Peterson put it very beautifully. तो जैसे जो conservative और liberal का tension है society में कि like there are certain traditions that you need to protect as you change and grow along the way. तो उसी तरीके से यहाँ पे भी है कि मतलब business के case में like you need to put certain systems but also like take action and like grow, and some of those actions are not going to yield. And again जितनी uncertainty है वो startups थोड़ा unique position है उस sense में कि you have to go with your gut call, and I think there's fun to it. But yeah, I would say Keith, just like so surrounding yourself with person who has that capability, or like finding mentor or finding just inspiration from a friend who does it in his or her life, might be like a good way to sort of orient yourself. For myself, who likes to think more than like act immediately, that sort of has worked well for me in my experience. I mean, in my personal relationship, my wife is more of a she wants to take actions and like maybe imperfect information. I can, so there I have the liberty to sort of think things more through more closely, more consciously, and maybe guide our decisions over a course of a quarter or 3 months. कि ठीक है भाई, like we can do these kinds of things when we're planning this part ahead. But आज की date में अगर कुछ करना है तो like we'll go with your judgment. So I think that sort of helps. It will be I think it's probably difficult to manage it all on your own. Yeah, but I'm sure there are people who develop the muscle for it and are able to do it better than others.
Right. So yeah, I think there was one more arc which I wanted to kind of cover, which intrigued me, which I am honestly not very clear about. I was reading about the cons, so to say, of consumerism, like blatant consumerism, right? So usme there was one thing which was basically it leads to things being promoted or produced which are incompatible with local cultures and patterns of local economic activity, right? So I am not entirely clear on this, to be very honest. So ispe matlab, first of all, if I need to repeat, I'll repeat myself. But if you have gotten the essence of the statement, what is your reading of this effectively?
I think so. When you said that, like Green Revolution came to my mind कि पूरे पंजाब में चावल और wheat उगा देना across the board, and for that matter, मतलब यूपी बिहार में भी हम लोग farming में ये patterns देखते हैं where people could be growing things like fruits that can pay them better, ज़्यादा उतना intensive नहीं है. They're going to go for rice and wheat because आसपास अपना ecosystem है, उसका सीड सस्ता मिलता है, उस पे 50 फर्टिलाइजर्स मिलते हैं, 4 लोग आके बोलने वाले भी मिल जाते हैं कि भाई इसमें ये कर लो, इसमें वो कर लो, उधर चीजों में खुद ढूंढना है. अगेन इट्स द पाथ ऑफ लीस्ट रेजिस्टेंस. एंड I'll go back. I'll probably again go back to that original point कि मतलब most of it is because conscious consumerism के जो cons that you're reading are more like things that people just didn't have the time, the patience, the knowledge to understand these as well as we do right now. And उस sense में like मतलब from where I see it, again, calling it a con or judging it negatively it only serves its purpose to an extent, like that you want to orient yourself to change it. But there's little merit in sort of so conceptualizing के point of view से मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि like मतलब उसको कौन की तरह conceptualize करने से के opposite है to accept it that as a phenomena. And I think because then अगर हम इस basis पे चलते हैं कि ठीक है ये चीज हुई but now we know better, so that is a foundation in which you can take those people along who are parties to it. But if the approach is like कि मतलब ये गलत है और ये सही है, तो उसमें I think it hinders public participation, like cooperation in general.
Right, agreed. I think वो negative light में ज़्यादा से it was more to just understand, मतलब just to bucketize.
And so I think एक चीज है कि consumerism या capitalism में malevolence है, like again individuals के level पे जैसे होती है, and again a lot of that is psychologically understandable, where it comes from, how does it manifest, how to deal with it. So there is a toolkit around that as well. कंपनीज वगैरह में या बिजनेसेस में या कंज्यूमरिज्म में कैसे मैनिफेस्ट होता है उसको भी लाइक अगेन जस्ट गेटिंग मोर कॉन्शियस एंड ट्राइंग टू सॉल्व फॉर इट विल हेल्प. तो आई थिंक आई वुड से जो ये बास्टर्डाइजेशन है ऑफ द फिनोमेना, आई डोंट थिंक इट रिप्रेजेंट्स जस्ट लाइक वी टॉक अबाउट इंडिविजुअली, राइट, कि मतलब किसी आदमी को उसके वर्स्ट पे नहीं जज कर सकते. So this is like consumerism at its worst or capitalism at its worst, and it is not a good proxy to hold that as any standard. Ki this is what consumerism does to you. I mean, it does, and I think it has merit. Ki matlab this is what you want to protect against. So laws अपने उस तरीके के रखो, awareness उस तरीके के रखो, codes वैसे रखो, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't serve कि मतलब अपने आप को किस direction में वहाँ से orient करने की जरूरत करना है.
I think fundamentally that is all clear कि मतलब consumerism is essential to fuel the economy, to fuel the growth of the society as a whole, definitely. But वो awareness वाला part is what probably has not caught up yet, and it's actually on the rise. I think जितना D2C, there are a lot of brands coming in with their the USPs being कि यार हम लोग organically बनाते हैं या हम without pesticides बनाते हैं, etc, and we'll keep on talking about them in the future, right? But मतलब I think that is the single kind of takeaway कि मतलब definitely consumerism is important. Post liberalization the country has seen lot of products from all over the world coming in, and probably
from our own country, like मतलब मैरिको उसके बाद बना effectively सारा पैराशूट वगैरह.
करेक्ट. तो मतलब अगर मैं एक इंडिविजुअल की जर्नी से भी देखूं तो मतलब effectively there is only after a certain point in your life only you start developing a consciousness, so to say, or awareness about things, so to say. तो अब जब ये when you have access of it, then you start questioning the mere thing, so to say. So I think that,
and I'm also willing to bet कि मतलब India is a culture that is going to move faster than others in this space. I mean, the solar commitment in itself like talks to that. So yeah, I think there's only upside to it, and I think इसलिए I spent all of the time sort of talking about not framing it as a con of consumerism, but as a, let's say, a feature that we need to work with. Is because like matlab again to achieve any kind of cooperation and like changing this, we need more and more people along, and it doesn't help to antagonize along the way.
agreed. Cool है. Anything else that you guys about?
काफी important, काफी interesting. I'll just quickly say, Prabhakar, for you can take it forward. मैं तो कह रहा हूँ कि अभी हमने काफी सारे interesting threads पे touch upon भी किया है. Maybe इसको finish करके we can share it and like and future episodes like run along those tangents, because conscious capitalism का framework हो गया, या फिर industry wise and conscious consumerism कैसे manifest होता है, क्या चीजें सोचने वाली हैं, उस type की themes पे भी जा सकते हैं. Yeah, so that's like my quick thought. What do you think, Prabhakar? क्या कह रहे थे?
No, I just wanted to bring up this Reddit community, if you guys have heard of. There's a community called Fuck Nestle.
अच्छा.
Have you guys heard of it?
No, I haven't.
It's a decently strong community. It's just like 250k plus members there, and it just highlights like all the unethical things that Nestle does. And some of the things were really, really surprising. I'll just let me just read a couple of things. So some of the key events were child labor to harvest cocoa. This was one thing which they did. Nestle convinced third world mothers that their baby formula is as good as breast milk. With no access to clean water, the formula mixed with water led to malnutrition. Nestle's bottled water has highest microplastic pollution. So these are like a couple of things, and that they were talking about why there is a unanimous hatred against Nestle. So yeah, it's probably worth exploring how unethical these big brands can go. Yeah.
Correct. I think Nestle Maggie पे ban भी तो लगा था उसके बीच में.
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
हाँ
I don't remember कुछ MSG या I'm not sure किस चीज के around थे. It was probably around an ingredient इस चीज की safety के around.
करेक्ट
अभी भी मतलब I think this again we'll have to pull up this guy food farmer I think is the name of the handle but again he talks about a lot about it. तो इसके campaigns के around like he has तो उसने जैसे ये बात करनी शुरू करी Instagram पे रील famous हुई he got slapped by lawsuits जिसको again he fought them out or like at least took to public awareness and in some cases like brands have gone back and changed their messaging or positioning. I think that's sort of again creating ripples. Very exciting है मतलब I think brands like Whole Truth again like I said Whole Truth, Slurp Farms, there have been at Embark, like there have been like lot of good consumer brands that have come up building around important things and doing things a fair bit like again so इसमें भी अगर तुम चीज देखो तो like everybody is on a spectrum like there are things that they might be missing out on and there are things that they might be doing better than even at larger companies so
I think one more.
we can cover more of that in future.
Yeah. Just one more thing. I think Ashi, you said right that you would be willing to take bet on India. I think I can also draw a parallel like how internet grew in India. Like larger part of India didn't go through that router thing. They directly got the
mobile
internet on their phone. I feel that a lot of brands will come up because in terms of number of SKUs, we are far behind than US, right? But here, whenever the number of SKUs or the number of brands explode, the brands will be much on a cleaner side, rather than number of brands coming up with like a lot of unethical stuff and then moving towards consciousness. Yeah, so I think I agree on that.
Yeah, makes sense.
सही है cool है guys awesome I think काफी बढ़िया मतलब interesting conversation था I'll share it across I think once we have edited it and thanks again तो ये था हमारा आज का कॉन्वर्सेशन ऑन कंज्यूमरिज्म एंड कॉन्शियस कंज्यूमरिज्म ये मेरे लाइफ जर्नी में काफ़ी एक तरह से क्लोज रहा है ये टॉपिक बिकॉज मैं काफ़ी एक समय था ऑलमोस्ट 4-5 साल पहले जब मैं काफ़ी इरिटेट हो जाता था काफ़ी एंग्स्ट हो जाती थी कि यार सब लोग किसी चीज़ के पीछे भाग रहे हैं कुछ मटेरियल पोजीशन के पीछे भाग रहे हैं पर दैट व्हाट आई एम एबल टू टेक अवे नाउ इज कि दैट इज नॉट नेसेसरीली अ बैड थिंग इनफैक्ट कंज्यूमरिज्म इज एसेंशियल जैसे जैसे हमारा देश बड़ा हो रहा है वैसे वैसे ऑब्वियसली कंजम्पशन भी बढ़ेगा और बढ़ना भी चाहिए बिकॉज दैट इज अ साइन ऑफ प्रॉस्पेरिटी पर जैसे जैसे हमारा देश बड़ा हो रहा है एट द सेम टाइम देयर इज अ कॉल फॉर बीइंग मोर कॉन्शियस विद योर कंजम्पशन एंड जैसा कि कवर भी किया कि अपने चॉइसेस को एक बार देख लें कि क्या ये सही में ज़रूरत है इस खर्चे की दैट इज़ द फर्स्ट स्टेप टू बीइंग कॉन्शियस इफेक्टिवली दैट इज आस्किंग और क्वेश्चनिंग योर ओन नीड और वहाँ से फिर आई थिंक कॉन्शियस कंज्यूमरिज्म इज समथिंग जो कि आगे बढ़ना भी चाहिए एंड वी विल कीप कवरिंग डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स हमने काफ़ी सारे टैंजेंट्स कवर भी किए एंड जो भी आपको पसंद आया वो आप कमेंट में बताएं एंड जो भी आप चाहें कि हमें इसे कवर करना चाहिए वो भी चीज़ आप हमको कमेंट्स में भेज सकते हैं हम बिल्कुल फॉलो करेंगे एंड थैंक यू सो मच फॉर स्टेइंग टिल द एंड होपफुली कुछ आप लोगों ने भी सीखा होगा एंड टिल द नेक्स्ट टाइम नमस्ते